Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 346. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I also have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my hand-spun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, September 20th, and the weather is changing here. Storms are rolling in tonight, and it is only supposed to be in the low 70s this week, and I am thrilled. It means fall is on the way. I know we're not done with the warm temperatures, but a couple nights ago my feet were cold, and I pulled out some warm woolen socks, and I have grabbed a few of my sweaters, and even though it was 90 degrees this weekend, it's starting to feel a little bit more like fall. And of course, I have been crafting up a storm, so it feels like fall. Since I last talked to you, we had the inaugural Kansas City yarn crawl. We had a few shops in, we've had some new shops open in the last 3 or 4 years. And they actually tried to get together and plan the Kansas City Yarn Crawl in 2020, and then the pandemic happened, and it did not happen. So they postponed to 2021, and even though we are still not really recovered from the pandemic, they decided to go ahead and hold it anyway. Numbers in stores were limited, and everyone was required to wear masks, so it was a safe time to do a little bit of shopping. And actually my knit group got together and we had a small carload of people. We were all vaccinated and we had lunch outdoors, we masked, and we went and shopped, and it actually was really, really nice. I wasn't sure how it was going to feel because it was kind of our first outing since the pandemic started, and you know, again, it's not over, so we're certainly not trying to be cavalier about that, but it was the first time we had gone and spent a day together and visited. It was the first time I had visited one of the shops and only the second time I had visited another, and we got to see what they had, and just, it was so nice to be out and to see each other in person and to be able to pick yarns in person. And I definitely indulged. If you looked at my Instagram feed, I posted my haul of day 1. Day 2 was considerably smaller, but I still purchased a few things, and I brought a couple of things to show you here. In general, I don't do really haul podcasts, so you'll see what I bought and I will mention it as I start to knit things. I have lots of project ideas and lots of things I'd like to cast on for, and so we'll just see how that goes. But it was really, it was fun. It was kind of a little bit like the before times, and it felt normal, and it was a little bit of a relief to know that some things could still happen again. But I will also say it was exhausting. I got home, we left Saturday about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I got home at 6:30 at night, and I fixed myself scrambled eggs for dinner because Wes was out, and then I fell asleep on the couch because I was so tired. I guess I have become more of an introvert throughout the pandemic, and I'm just not used to spending all day with people and socializing and out and about. So it was a wonderful time. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I supported the shops. And that is kind of the big thing that has happened. I got some crafting done this week, but I did not get quite as much done as I would have liked. Part of that is just because I was busy at work and out a little bit. I took part of Friday off, and then I was gone all day Saturday to do the yarn crawl, and so I just didn't get through as many things. But I do have some things to share with you. I'm going to share a couple of the new skeins I got because I'm hoping to maybe cast on with one of them this week, and talk a little bit about what I'm working on. So today's tea is actually something that I picked up while I was on the yarn crawl. We went to Lawrence, Kansas, which is the site of Yarn Barn, which is actually where today's purchases that I will share with you are from. But they also, Lawrence is kind of a combination of college town and kind of artistic and a little hip and funky. They also had a fabric store, a variety of cooking stores, a big toy store that everybody loves, a couple bookstores, just a lot of space to wander and things to do and see. And we did not spend a ton of time there, but one of the places that we did go is we went to Brits. And Brits is what it sounds like, actually. It is a store divided to all things from the UK. And so it has all kinds of biscuits and digestives and foods that you can only get there. And of course, they have an amazing selection of tea. And as it turns out, one of the teas that I bought was not British. It's actually a local tea, but it sounded so good, and I'm drinking it today. This is Harney & Sons Heirloom Bartlett Pear. It is a flavored white tea, and I had not seen this flavor before, but it kind of reminds me of fall, of course. And this one is, hang on just a second. This one is white tea, pear, apple, peach, pear flavor, nutmeg, pear pieces, apple pieces, peach pieces, pear flavor, nutmeg, ground cinnamon, cinnamon chips, white cornflowers, peach and peach flavor. So it's a white tea with lots of fruit and spice, and it just seemed perfect for fall harvest. And I am drinking it today in my Sip Something Sinful mug, which was a gift from a friend of mine, and I am just really excited about this. Ooh, that's delicious. I get a little bit of pear, I get a lot of apple, and then I get the white tea in there, and just a hint of cinnamon. It's not super strong, although maybe I didn't brew it long enough for that, but it is tasty. I think actually it would be great iced, so I may make a picture of it iced, even though we're moving towards fall, and I'll probably move towards drinking hot tea more. So that is delicious, very fruity, but definitely a fall vibe. I like it. So I have one finished object this week, and they are kind of small, but I'll share them anyway. These are socks for Miles, and if you remember last week, I had the first one done, or almost done. I can't remember if it was completely done. These are my standard vanilla sock recipe. The yarn is Nomadic Yarns, and it is her trusty base? I cannot remember. I know it is 463 yards, and it is superwash merino and nylon, and you may recognize it. It is in the Sharknado colorway, and for those of you who have been with me for a bit, this is the leftovers of the skein that I used for Miles' sock arm sweater, so he'll have matching socks. And actually, I still have a little bit of the skein left, but I knit these socks for him, so these are all set to go. These will be part of his Christmas package, but I like to get started early because I like to give each kid a few pairs of socks, and both kids have grown so much this year that none of their old socks fit. So that is the first pair done. I'm going to try and cast on a pair in a different colorway for Roxy. It is an Essence of Autumn colorway that I actually knit a pair of socks for myself in, and I need to weigh it, but I'm pretty sure that I have enough to do a pair of socks for her, and so I will be knitting a pair of socks for her next. I will alternate so that I get roughly the same numbers done for each, and if I could finish those by the end of September, that would be amazing. I don't know if I can make it work, but if I could, that would be great, because I still want to do a few more pairs for each, plus I still have some of their winter gear. So, but that is done and ready to go, and so I can put that in my winter box for the kids, and one down and several more to go. So, next up is a project that I had on my needles last week, and it is a shawl by Vera Valmaki. Oh, I guess I should say, these are my vanilla sock pattern. It's a 2x2 rib at the top, plain stockinette, a slip stitch, garter heel flap, and a standard toe. I knit these 52 stitches on size 0 needles. He is going to be 5, and I know that they're going to be a little bit big, but what I do is kind of each year I up the circumference of the sock by 4 stitches, and I knit him 48 stitch socks last year, and my sister said they were getting a little tight, so I went ahead and went up to the 52s. For Roxy, I don't know whether I'm going to go up to 56 stitches, because that's what I would go up to her for this year, and I'm just not sure that, so I wear size 56 stitches and 60 stitches, depending on the needle size. So my thought is for her, I may use 52 stitches and then just go up to US 1s to make them a little bit bigger. For hers, I'm not sure that they're so tight around. I think she's just grown in length. But for him, he has grown quite a bit since the last time I knit him socks. And so I wanted to be sure that these would fit him and for a good time to come. So, at least they'll last all winter, because he's been shooting up by leaps and bounds. So that is these no official pattern and size 0 sock needles. So, the next thing on my needles is a shawl pattern by Vera Velmaki. It is the Stay Soft Shawl, and it is a garter stitch shawl with a little bit of, it's a bunch of triangles that are connected in various ways, and I was really excited to knit this with some yarns that I bought for my birthday last year. Sorry, this year. It has not been that long. I actually am getting to this one within 6 months, so I don't know if that even counts as stash, does it? I am using Less Traveled yarn, and I am using several different colorways in her Dreamliner collection, which is 70% BFL, 20% silk, 10% cashmere, 438 yards. The BFL is from the United Kingdom. The Dyer traveling yarn is from Arizona. And I am using 3 of her colors. I am using the Saguaro colorway, which is a great kind of semi-solid green cactus colorway. I am using the Vinta colorway, which is a dark charcoal. And then I will be using, and I have not wound it yet because I'm not there yet, Transmutation, which is this great kind of almost oxidizing colorway. It's got greens and a little bit of teal and some yellowy browns. And I am going to use this as my accent color. So the shawl is constructed in a variety of triangles. As I said, it starts as an asymmetrical triangle, and you start with a solid garter section, which I showed you last week is knit in the color A, which is Saguaro, my green. The second section is your alternating color stripes. So I am alternating between Saguaro and Vinta, and I am actually done with this section. If I decide that I want to be done there. One of the things is that the shawl calls for approximately 900 yards, maybe a little bit over, 900 or 975 yards, and I have well over, I have almost 1,300. And so I'm trying to decide if I can add a little bit to the length. I did not add anything in the first section. I'm trying to decide if I should add some stripes to the stripy section or if I should just go on to the final section and make that a little bit longer. So this is what I have left of the Saguaro. If I cut it here, I'm sure this is more than 50% of the wall, or at least 50%. I have about the same left of the Vinta. Now I do realize that because my shawl is increasing, because it is an asymmetrical triangle and it is increasing, and I still have almost the same number of, not quite, but almost the same number of rows in the striping section to go, that I probably will use most of this one. So I guess maybe I won't add to it now, or if I do, maybe I'll just add to the end of the charcoal gray section. And then the final section is picked up and kind of knit on at the edge of this shawl, at the kind of as an applied edging here, and that one will be in this colorway. So my goal is to maybe get through the next section of the shawl, the third and final kind of section of this main triangle, and then maybe I can start on this the following week. So hopefully I'll get through that. Again, this is the Stay Soft Shawl by Vera Velmaki. I think I dropped 1 needle size. As I've told you, my gauge is such that at this point I usually drop 2 needle sizes. I think I didn't want to go down to full needle sizes, both because I knew I had extra yardage and because it's a garter stitch wrap. And so I really do want it to be oversized and squishy. And honestly, if I could figure out a way to use up all my yarn, I totally would. But my concern is that even if I use up all my yarn on this asymmetrical triangle, that maybe I won't have enough to do the applied edging, because the applied edging does take quite a bit of yarn. So I don't want to mess with things too much. I might add a few extra rows to the asymmetrical shawl, but again, I don't want to add too much because I don't want to worry about running out of yarn. So this is a soothing project. It's nice for me to pick up when I don't have anything else going on. There's no timeline on this. Again, this one is for me. Honestly, the only reason that I'm anxious to finish it for 2 reasons. One is I'm a product knitter and I'd love to have the skeins out of the yarn stash and have a new shawl to wear for fall. But the bigger reason is that now I have a whole bunch of new yarns that I just bought on the yarn crawl, and I would really like to cast on for a sweater. But I'm not allowing myself to have more than one project going for myself at a time because I am moving through samples, which I'll share with you, and gifts for the kids right now. And so this is and chickens, and this is a busy knitting time of the year, and so I don't want to have more than one project on the go for myself. Usually what I will do is work really hard on everybody else's stuff through November and maybe the first part of December. And then December and January, when things are super slow, I will knit a whole bunch for myself. So, yeah. So this is the current project I have going for myself, and I am looking forward to this being done so I can wear it for the fall. The yarn is absolutely lovely. It's really nice and soft with that cashmere in there. It's a little bit sturdier than, or a little bit more rustic than merino because of the BFL, but I also think that once I wash this, it is going to be really, really lovely. So I'm looking forward to finishing and blocking, but I am also enjoying the process. It is really soothing to not have to count and not have to keep track of things, and particularly when I share with you my next project, I'm having to keep track more on that one, so this one is really nice. So, progress, and hopefully I will have more to show you next week, and as I said, if that one's done in the next few weeks, that would be just fine with me. So the final project on my needles for now is a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. As you know, I knit lots of samples for them, and this one is kind of fun. It is going to be the Excuse Me sweater by Stephen West, and I am knitting it in brioche in yarn cakes bigger than my head, and I did not remember to bring them last week, so this week I will show you. These are the new queen cakes from Zen Yarn Garden, and I'm not lying, they really are like almost the size of my head. Okay, maybe not completely, but pretty darn close. This behemoth skein called a queen cake is 5 skeins of Zen Yarn Garden's worsted. So it's 500 grams. It is, they are 175 yards a piece, so that's 5 and 3. Oh, I have to do math on air. They're about 800, well, no, I can do this. They're 875 yards. So one of them, for the brioche sweater, where I have 2 of them, 2 is totally enough for a sweater, and I'm sure that you could get a sweater out of 1 or 2 easily, or, you know, you could mix it with some of their regular skeins, which are only 100 grams, 175 yards. So this is the Gia Splatter colorway, and this has a lot of different colors. It's got red and orange and blues and purples, and a little pink where the purples and reds and blues meet, and it's a little hard to tell in the skein, but it is really, really gorgeous. I am contrasting that. The Excuse Me sweater is a brioche all over sweater. It is knit in the round from the top down, and it has some interesting increases and decreases, hence the part of my counting and following the pattern. It has a bunch of interesting increases and decreases to make certain sections bias or be a little bit askew, hence the Excuse Me in the title. And so the background color, which is the inner color that I am using, is called Midnight, and it is a black. So again, this is a queen cake, a huge one, but this is just in a plain black. I should say this is actually not just in their worsted, it's in their worsted nightshade base. And this is the base that has 1 strand of black yarn that doesn't take the dye, and then the other strands are cream, and they do take the dye. In colors. So you get kind of a mottled, variegated, it makes it a little bit tweedy looking because it's kind of marled because it has that black stripe in there. So all of which is to say that I started the Excuse Me sweater. So I intended right after we met last week to swatch, and then I had a think about the swatch, and I thought, you know, I'm going to be knitting this sweater in brioche in the round. And normally brioche is a series of 2 right side rows and 2 wrong side rows. And if I were to try and swatch, I'd either have to swatch in the round, but cutting it open would be just like completely weird because I don't know if the fabric would hang together very well because brioche is a little loosey-goosey. And, you know, so I was trying to figure out how best to accomplish a swatch. And I decided that because the sweater starts top down in the round and the neck starts with around 80 stitches, I decided that maybe I should just start the neck as my swatch, take a guess on my needle sizes, knit the neck, a little bit of the neck, wash it and block it, and see if I was on gauge. And the worst thing that would happen is I'd have to pull out a couple of inches of the neck, which is a few more stitches. Yes, okay, for a swatch, I probably would have only cast on 25 or 30 stitches, but it really wasn't going to be that much more work. So I did that, and the good news was that I totally hit gauge, and so I was really excited because I could just keep going. And the bad news was that something didn't look right, and I realized that I had done a bunch more decreases than I had done increases, and so for some reason I wasn't matching them together, and my neck had decreased by 5 stitches, which isn't even, like, I don't even know what I did, because brioche so in the pattern, the brioche increase is by 2 stitches and the decrease is by 2 stitches, keeping it consistent. So I should have been off by either 4 or 6 stitches, not 5. So yeah. So basically I ripped all the way back to the start afterwards, which, as I said, I had initially been intending to swatch and I knew I might have to rip, but I ripped completely back to the start, and I restarted yesterday, and so the only work I have on this is from yesterday, and so it is several inches, or maybe about 3 inches, but it's really not as much as I wanted to show you. So that is a long-winded way to show you what I have so far, which is the neck of the Excuse Me sweater. And I don't know if the monitor is really doing it justice. I don't think it is, because what I see is just so much more vibrant and colorful. But this is the Excuse Me sweater. Like I said, there are some increases and decreases to give you some shaping that also make the fabric bias a little bit, so things are a little bit askew. And so that is what I'm currently working on. Like I said, I have about between 3 and 4 inches of the neck. I have probably 5 or 6 more inches to go, depending on how much I have already, and following the pattern, I don't want to give too much away. But this is a very simple brioche. And the other thing that's really interesting that I have thought about it, but I hadn't really internalized it, is that when you knit brioche in the round, it actually becomes a little bit less cumbersome, because brioche is sort of a slip stitch knitting pattern that also kind of creates, it's almost a cross between like a double knitting fabric and a slip stitch. Brioche is created by making multiple passes through. So in typical brioche, when you're working back and forth, you make a pass through with the dominant color on the right side, and then you make a pass, and you're slipping the non-dominant color stitches, and you're also adding kind of a yarn over with those slip stitches, which is what creates kind of this meshy fabric where it's kind of interlocked. I don't even know how to describe this super well. But brioche is basically a 4-step process. You pass through on the right side with the dominant color, and then you go back to the beginning and you pass through on the right side with the non-dominant color. Then usually what happens is you flip it over, and then on the wrong side you make a pass through with the front dominant color, and then you make a pass through with the back dominant color. And brioche produces a fabric that is basically reversible, you know, unless you're tucking your ends in and stuff. And it's also part of the reason that it's challenging to weave in ends on brioche, because both sides can be the right sides. It is often used to create wraps that are reversible, and technically the sweater will be reversible, although I think the more interesting side is going to be the side with the cream and the colors, because the black is just kind of dark and you really don't get as much of the speckling. So I'm treating this as though it's the right side. Now the interesting thing is that when you knit brioche in the round, and this whole sweater is knit in the round and it's basically seamless, you knit from the top down and then you pick up the sleeves and knit down. when you knit in the round, you are only ever knitting with the front color dominant, and so you are always doing one row in the front dominant color, and then you are doing one row in the non-dominant color, and then you're doing another row in the front dominant color and another row in the non-dominant color. So you're not having to work back and forth, and that also means you are always basically knitting the front dominant color, and you are always purling the back dominant, the non-dominant color. So it's kind of an interesting, I know that was very convoluted and probably not well explained, but I'm finding it rhythmic and pretty interesting. That said, I have my increases and decreases every fourth row, and I have to remember A, to do them every fourth row, and B, to match them every fourth row and to not go rogue and try and do something different in between. So far I have about 4 inches of correct knitting with the right number of, with the correct stitch count, and I am going to work more on that this evening, and I'm just going to hold this real close to the camera now so you can see all of that beautiful color. There's purples and oranges and reds and blues, and I think this is going to be an amazing fall knit. My goal is to have this done within the next month. That's not finished in September, but done within a month or so. So I'm hoping to maybe have this finished by October 15th. We can send it off to be photographed, and then there will be kits in various sizes, and I think this is going to be a really fun knit. This is one that I don't know whether it's my style. Interestingly enough, I'm knitting it in my size. I am knitting it in, for this one, I picked the size based on how much yarn I had. That's what dictated it, and I always try and knit the largest size for the yarn that I have. And so this is the largest size that I felt I could comfortably get. Technically, I could do one size bigger, but I was a little afraid and I didn't want to play yarn chicken at the end. So I am knitting the medium size, which I believe is around a 38 bust. The finished will be larger than that because it has plenty of ease. But I am looking forward to this because not only have I enjoyed looking at this pattern over the years, I've always wondered what it would be like to knit one, and I'm not 100% sure it's my style. It might be, and so I will try it on when I'm done and decide whether it's something that I want to knit for myself as well, but in the meantime, I'm having fun with that. So that was a very long-winded discussion of a project I have on the needles now. So I will share with you 2 skeins that I bought on the yarn crawl this weekend. They are actually, I think, the only 2 skeins that I bought this weekend that are not technically indie dyed fiber. I think everything else I bought was from indies that can only be gotten at my local yarn stores. These I picked because they are a good... they're more than just a workhorse yarn, but they are also at a great price point and exactly what I need. So I bought 2 skeins of Malabrigo Rios this weekend. And Malabrigo Rios is a worsted weight yarn. It is 100% superwash merino wool. You can wash it in the washing machine. I believe it suggests not drying, although my guess is they can probably be dried. Don't quote me on that. If you knit a beautiful sweater for yourself, do not do that. However, I bought them because I am going to knit hats for the kids. I was looking for something that, well, okay. I should say that I am spoiled by indie dyed and kettle dyed yarn. I have been spoiled by them for years and years and years, and now when I look at flat colors, when I look at things like, say, Barocco Vintage, or other kind of superwash yarns that are good workhorse yarns for kids wear, I find that the colors are really flat. And I really just don't like them as much, and I like giving the kids slightly more sophisticated colors just with a little bit more depth to them. And so one of the things, I did make a list for myself of projects I wanted to buy for while I was on the crawl, and I actually did pretty well in sticking to that. I will, as you'll see over time, I bought a couple sweater quantities, one with definitely with a sweater in mind and another with some ideas for a sweater. I bought one random skein for a hat, and then I bought one skein to go with another skein I had bought previously. It's like a jumbo size skein, and I think with the 2 of them I can knit myself a sweater. So, but I did go intending to buy a couple skeins of worsted weight so each kid could have a new fun hat. And I was looking for something again, that was a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more depth of color. But of course, I also wasn't looking to break the budget because I recognize that these are hats that are going to kids. These are for my niece and nephew. I realize they could get lost at school. They could, you know, they're going to go in the washer and dryer. And so I need them to not be super fancy. And to be honest, while I have no problem spending $25 or $30 a skein of yarn for myself, for things that I'm going to make and I know I'm going to take care of, I didn't necessarily want to spend quite that much on hats for the kids. Again, because they could get lost or because they're going to get washed and worn and, you know, loved on for the next couple years. And so I really just, and I also don't expect that they'll last forever. The kids will grow out of them. Hopefully, the older one will maybe go down to the younger one eventually. But, you know, I didn't want to spend a fortune. Malabrigo makes some gorgeous yarns. These are their superwash merinos. Like I said, I know they can be machine washed. They can probably be tumble dried low along with the kids' other clothing. And they just came in really rich colors. So this one is Jupiter, and I really liked it because it's a red, but it's a really sophisticated red. It's not a fire engine red. Last year I knit Miles a sample in, or I knit him, maybe it was 2 years ago, I can't remember. I knit him a winter set, I think it was last year, in Valentine from Dream in Color. I also love Dream in Color. But Valentine from them, and it was a bright red. And so I really wanted something a little more sophisticated, and I think this is going to be some kind of a cabled hat. I'm leaning towards going to, Kelburn Woolens did a year of hats. It was a year of free patterns, 1 a month. And each was like the monthly hat, so it's like the May hat, the October hat, the September hat, etc. And they were meant to be worked in their Kelburn Woolens, which is kind of a worsted Aran weight yarn. So my thought is that I might go back to those patterns and I might just adapt them, take out like maybe one of the repeats to make it a child-sized hat, because since they were free patterns, they only came in one size. Well, some of them might have come in small and large, but I think they were only like adult-sized hats. But my thought was I could take out one of the repeats and basically make it a hat for Miles. So that's the one for Miles. And Roxy's favorite colors are pink and purple and light blue. And I was trying to find an appropriate Malabrigo Rios colorway. And this is the Purpurus colorway, which of course is purple with hints of pink. And so I thought this was a really nice, without being kind of little girly, I thought this was a nice sophisticated colorway. And she will also get a hat. I don't know if I'll do the same patterns for both of them or whether I'll do 2 different patterns, but these are 210 yards of worsted weight, which means I can definitely get a hat for them and a nice pom-pom, and I'll probably even have some leftovers, and I might put those into my charity hat knitting bin because it's time to start. Well, okay, I already made the donation of all the hats that I knit last year. I don't know if you remember, right around Thanksgiving and Christmas, I got into a leftover hat knitting mood, and I knit, I think about 15 hats out of worsted leftovers in my stash. So whatever I don't use from these will just go back into a bag of worsted leftovers, and my hope is that maybe during the holidays this year, I'll take some of those with me on the road as well. We will be doing a little bit of traveling. I'll talk about that when I get closer. And so they're good like car projects because they're just mindless knitting. So those are 2 of the skeins I bought this weekend with the definite purpose to cast them on for hats, and I hope maybe I'll cast on one this week along with a pair of socks for Roxy. So that is all the knitting, and I have taken quite a bit of time, but that's fine because I don't have a lot of spinning content to show you. Because I was really tired, I fell asleep a lot, and I was out and about. I did not spend that much time at my wheel this week. I do have, from the week before, the kumasi fiber that I had told you I was spinning. I did finish spinning it, but of course I did not ply it. So this was a braid of BFL from Kumasi, and to me, I was calling it Berry Cobbler because it had some rich browns and fall tones, and then it also had kind of dark purples and pinks. And it just reminded me of a fruit cobbler or a very kind of fall colorway. Not in the traditional fall, like fall leaves, but just in a fall, like cozy fall, and you know, cobblers and tasty, warm cinnamon apple things, and just something kind of warm and cozy. So I am going to ply that up tonight and hopefully get that up in the shop a little bit later this week. I'll bring it back to share with you next week. And then I did start spinning on that color pack, which was a completely 180. If you remember, the color pack that I showed last week was a spring bloom, and it was a bunch of yellows and a bunch of bright greens and a bunch of bright pinks. And I have started the first bobbin of that, but that is 8 ounces of fiber, and my guess is I'm only an ounce or two in. So that's going to take me, excuse me, let me get a sip of tea. Podcaster chokes on her own saliva. That is going to take me a little bit to get into that, and my guess is it's probably not going to be done next week. So hopefully I will have at least a finished bobbin to show you next week. I did buy a couple braids of fiber on the yarn crawl, and so I think that will probably be, one of those will probably be my next spin. So I will bring those to show you soon, because I think those will hop on my wheel right away. And then my hope is that in the next few weeks I can finish some things and maybe even cast on a sweater. I am aware that we are at September 20th, so it's almost the end of the month. I'm also aware that November 1st, while I cannot believe I'm already saying this, November 1st is not that far away. It's a month and a half away. And that of course means Nanny Swaymo. So even though I'm dying to cast on a sweater right now, do I cast on a sweater partway through September? Or partway through October before I start one for Nanny Swaymo? Or how do I organize that? So I'm really not sure about that. I may try and crank on the kids' gear and hold myself off till November. I have a bunch of different things I could do for November. I know originally I had talked about using the yarn I spun in the Tour de Fleece and using that for my Nanny Swaymo, but of course now I have a new sweater quantity in a to die for rusty orange color. You can see it, it's on my Instagram. And so now I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to start that next. I might. So, I have talked your ear off for long enough. I hope that you are having a good week wherever you are. I hope that you are happy and healthy. Get your vaccinations, you know, do what you can, wash your hands, wear your masks, be good, enjoy all of your crafting, and I will see you next week. As I always say, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.